I'm going to go ahead and clean up the motor before I start messing with it. So right here is water, that is degreaser, and in there is a STP-205, which is a rubber plasticizer. So I'm going to hit it with the water, then the degreaser, and then the plasticizer. This is the rubber plasticizer, so I spray it all over the plastics, see if it helps at all. AT205. This button here needs replaced for sure. Looks like this thing's been ran pretty recently. There's still some fuel in here in this filter, and the petcock here is not super gunked up, so I don't know, I'd assume that it was run within the last few years at least. If not, there'd be like the buildup from the gas after it kind of ages and becomes kind of like gunky snot, so it looks like this thing's been run pretty recently, within the last 5 years or so, I would have to guess. Oof. Try to get you a closer look on. Now check out the button whenever I push it. See that? Just totally cracked out. See the color difference in it. Still holding up though. Luckily I saw these on eBay or something similar, so that should be a pretty easy part to replace if I need to. The throttle grip actually feels pretty good. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be locking into position or not, but it stays where it's at and there's a good resistance. It doesn't feel like it's damaging anything. Maybe it's supposed to be like that, and the actual rubber on the grip feels pretty good, especially after I just sprayed it with that 205 reseal. I'm assuming this just locks it in place. So in my mind, since it has a lock on here, I'm going to assume that this whole throttle mechanism is supposed to spring back into place, but there's obviously either the cable's rusted or something's going on because now it's just staying where it's at. So yeah, this Gamefisher looks really nice after just a few minutes of cleaning and degreasing it. If you're planning on reselling something on Facebook Marketplace, just go ahead and clean it. You'll get more attention and faster sales. Can't really say that you'll sell it for more, but people would be more likely to buy it if it's clean compared to if it is kind of like grimy and somebody has to degrease it and put some elbow grease into it. They'd rather just buy it clean, even if it doesn't run. If it looks shiny, somebody's going to be more likely to buy it. Now I'm going to try to get this cover off. Looks brand new in there. That's a good sign. So I sprayed that reseal on the gas cap as well, and before I sprayed it on there, probably be a little bit afraid to crack it open. It looked like the top was a soft rubber, and this is a plastic, obviously. But now it feels a little bit more supple. The rubber on top doesn't feel like it's chipping. I don't know, that stuff is kind of magic. Shout out to Scotty Kilmer on that, because it definitely works. I'll make sure none of it gets into the gas tank though. Yeah, so the gas tank is actually pretty clean, surprisingly. Actually, I'm not super surprised because the guy got it from a estate sale, and usually somebody who had one of these Gamefishers was pretty good at maintaining stuff. I mean, it's a different era where you could get one of these at Sears and you would be more of a craftsman per se, and it seems like it's in pretty good shape. It does look like there's some gunk in the bottom of the tank. I'm going to see if I can show you what it looks like. Yeah, the inside of the tank looks pretty good. You can see there's like a bit of, looks like the gas is maybe varnished down there, but not too terribly. Looks like it's still in a nice liquid form. I'm pretty happy about that. I could probably put some gas in this thing and start it right now. So this whole cowl comes off, but looks like this piece here on the gas cap works as like a washer. So I'm going to try to pull it off without ripping it up, but there is some tiger stripes in it, so it might tear, which I'm fine with. I'll make something if I need to. But it looks like it's coming off the threads. Kind of having to pull it because it doesn't want to widen at all. Oof. Yeah, see all those little micro cracks in it. I'm going to spray it with the 205 and see if I can revive it at all. So this should come off now. Again, I've never actually worked on one of these before, so kind of just working my way through it the best I can. It's like the kill switch is bolted to the cowl, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to get that off. The wires seem somewhat dry rotted. Okay, so there's a screw right there that I'm going to loosen up so I could get the kill switch disconnected from the motor itself. And then there's a bullet style, looks like a fuse or something, underneath the cowl here that I'll also try to pull apart, but I don't have high confidence that it's going to pull apart without cracking. That's disconnected, and here you should be able to see what I'm talking about. Disconnected. There's a bullet right here that I'm gonna have to pull off, and hopefully, oh, it's still kind of soft. Oh, I'll hit it with this, see if it helps at all. My Leatherman here to get some purchase on this side of the bullet. There you go. And it's disconnected. So again, trying to spray everything with some 205 reseal so that it gets those rubbers a little bit more soft. I have a feeling I just cracked yeah, I did. So just cracked the ground here. Luckily it's just a wire, so I could wire it back up pretty quick, but you can see inside of here how corroded that connection is there. Don't know why. Some of it's just really corroded. So this would be a good time to just completely wipe down this cowl if you wanted to. But there's not really much more for me to do to it. I'm not trying to restore it or anything. I'm just trying to get it running, get it looking halfway decent, and then put it on my John boat over there. Alright, I'm going to do a smell test on the old gas tank, see what it smells like. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's rough. It smells like polish remover almost. So I don't know. My thought process is just putting more gas in it so that the gas will kind of mix up this bad stuff in here, and then if I need to, I'll try to use it in like a weed whacker or something, but realistically, I'll just run some gas through it. Hopefully it'll dilute that enough and just kind of work out all of the nasty varnished gas that's in this. Who knows how long it's been sitting, but this tank feels pretty solid. It doesn't look like it's got any cracks in it, and you know, this plastic will probably be pretty decent. It doesn't look too brittle or anything like that. So this is the pull start on top of the motor, and it looks like it's in pretty good shape, to be honest. Like that looks good inside. So again, I don't have any doubts of it starting with how clean this is, considering it's like a probably 30-year-old 3 horsepower 2-stroke. It's in pretty good shape. I just went ahead and put the pull start back on to give it some test pulls, see what it sounds like. I didn't even try out the clamps, which probably would have been a smart idea. Feels like there's some pretty good compression there. This is too tight. See that? The cowl acts as a washer to put some space between the pull start and the actual case, so that's why it locked up. Kind of hard to get a good spot to hold this without the cowl though, but you could hear it's got pretty good compression. We'll go ahead and check for sparks now. Still feels pretty good. Seems pretty clean in there. This cable here, pretty soft, supple. I'm potentially thinking they replaced this somewhat recently. This one was giving me some hard time, so I switched to a flat head. It's in a really tight spot. Don't know how to get to this one. Sometimes the straight blade, OG, just works the best. That one feels like it's dropped out all the way. Let's see what this one does. Okay. It's a little bit strange looking. Huh. That gas burnt my finger. Yeah, I must have a cut on the tip of my finger, but it burnt. Seems like everything's working in there as it should. Doesn't look too nasty in here, actually. Not really any gasket to speak of. If there is, it's completely turned into nothing. Kind of a weird little float in here. Just no attachment. It must just float up to the stop here. Looks like everything inside is working as it should, so I'm gonna go get some parts from the store and try to fire it up. I can't tell if this is getting spark based off of potentially the ground is not connected, might not be getting spark, so I'm gonna have to put everything back together as it should be and then go from there to determine. This spark plug could also just be old and bad, so we'll see. But I definitely need some fuel lines first. Kind of see exactly what's left of the hose from before here. I mean, that thing was crusty. This feels like plastic. Trying to get it out. You heard that. Just turned into plastic. Can't really remember how this was run before. Don't know if it was run under or over. I feel like it wouldn't have been run over that way. Maybe through the top. I think I'm going to run it this way. Seems like it's going to get a bunch of heat there, which is fine. So, cut it about there. And give it some extra, that way I could change it up if I want to. Kind of looking at it and think maybe it'd be better if it ran on the outside, just so that it avoids more heat than it needs to be exposed to. I'm gonna run it like that. Might not be stock, but it'll give me a little extra to work with too. I have a little extra fuel line there. So that's on there nice and tight. I'm not going to put a hose clamp on there yet because I don't really need to right now. I'm just running a test. So I'm going to button it back up and see if it'll start. Looks like there's RTV on the inside here because that just kind of scrapes off. I'm just going to run with it for the time being. And if I find the performance is bad, I'll just take the carb off and clean it totally, break it down, and replace any parts that I need to. Just using one of these wire bristles to thread through the jet. It looks like it's cleared. I couldn't tell if it was clogged or not, but now it's definitely cleared. It's a easy way to clean out the jet if you don't have, like, I don't know, a thin wire. You could just use a wire brush if you have one. So now I could see daylight through there. It'd be hard for you to tell, but I could see it's clear, so that's good. And then the main jet is clear through to the intake, so I'm gonna go ahead and spray it out a little bit more with carb cleaner. Clear everything in there. Screw this jet back in. This really just needs to be hand tight, and then just a little bit of torque on that flathead to snug it down. And this thing should work. I don't have a gasket here, so I think what I'm going to do is just throw some RTV on here and assume that this is now going to work based off of cleaning it. It doesn't seem like there's anything that's going to be clogged up. I'm trying to see if I could look through the fuel in. I believe that's the idler jet there, but I can't really get it off. It's really tight. Might try to break this
nut that's down here and see if that'll do it. Yeah, so that's a number 7 there, and with something like this, a brass fitting, I tried to use needle nose first, and I could just tell I was gonna mar it. You could see the top of this carb, the fuel line in. Sorry, this filming is kind of difficult, but see that fuel in is kind of like marred up and kind of sharp, so I'm going to try to file that down, but it looks like somebody tried to loosen this. I tried to as well. It looked like somebody really tried to loosen it, when in reality should have been using this nut on the collar here to remove this fitting, and you definitely want to use an open-ended wrench for this to get the best contact on that nut there. I'm holding this thing so weird, and like I'm in the weirdest position right now, so forgive me. Definitely not easy to film this and actually do it, so shout out to all those channels that are and making good content doing it. Alright, cool. Idler jet looks good. So in here, it'd be hard to tell, but there's a little needle in there that works with the float, and it either lets enough gas in to idle, and the port on this fitting is pretty clear. Just take the carb cleaner, put the straw through and blow it through. That should give it enough. I'm just using my fingers to kind of clean it up, make it look a little bit better, and I'm just going to put it back on. Usually if I open up a carb, I'm going to try to get to all the fittings and parts so that there's not really any question of it working. That way I'll know that it's probably not the carb if it doesn't start once I reinstall it. It's kind of difficult to get on here actually. There's no sense in opening up the carb and not trying to clean the whole thing. Doing an ab workout here, trying to hold this carb and screw in this fitting and make sure I'm in the frame for the footage. I think I got it. These brass fittings, they're very delicate, so I try not to use any tools to get them started. Just try to thread them in by finger. And this threading is actually, you could see it's kind of like on a slight angle. So it's actually rotating to the left a bit off of the axis here, and it makes it feel really awkward screwing it in. You can actually see where the face of this thread goes in. It's kind of like on an angle. Try to show it to you here. See that there? That is actually on a slight angle. It's kind of out of focus there. So it kind of felt unnatural trying to screw it in. I was trying to screw it in flush or perpendicular to the carb, but actually threads in kind of off angle. Now it's going in pretty nicely. And if you ever feel like